My grandson Isaiah was supposed to be watching cartoons while I fixed his Saturday breakfast, but instead he'd crept up beside me at the stove, his little 7-year-old hand tugging on my housecoat. "Mama Lo," he whispered, using the name all my grandbabies called me. "Can I tell you a secret?" I turned down the flame under the grits and bent down to his level, my knees popping like they always did these days. "What is it, baby?" His eyes were so serious, too serious for a child. He glanced toward the living room where my husband Vernon sat in his recliner reading the newspaper, then leaned close to my ear. "Mama, Grandpa has a lover, and they're going to take all your money." I felt the words like ice water down my spine. My hand gripped the counter to steady myself. "What did you say?" I whispered back, my heart hammering so hard I could hear it in my ears. "I heard Daddy talking on the phone," Isaiah said, his little voice shaking. "He said Grandpa's got a woman named Miss Cheryl, and she's gonna help them get everything after—" He stopped, tears filling his eyes. "After you gone, Mama Lo." My vision blurred. 52 years. 52 years I'd been married to Vernon Watkins. 52 years of cooking his meals, ironing his shirts, standing by his side through 2 strokes and a heart attack. And now this baby, this innocent child, was telling me my husband, and apparently my own son, was plotting to rob me blind. "Isaiah, baby, who was Daddy talking to?" "Auntie Denise," he said. "They was laughing about it." Both my children. Both of them. I heard Vernon's chair creak in the other room. "Loretta? That food about ready?" he called out, like this was just another Saturday morning. Like he wasn't planning my financial funeral. I straightened up, my whole body trembling. "Almost, Vernon," I called back, and I was shocked my voice sounded normal. I looked down at Isaiah, smoothed his hair back from his forehead. "You did good telling me, baby. But this is our secret now, okay? Just you and me." He nodded solemnly, and I saw fear in his eyes. Fear for me. That's when I knew this wasn't some misunderstanding. This was real. Before we continue, please drop a comment if you've ever experienced something like this. We'd love to hear your story, and subscribe to the channel to help us grow. Let me tell you how I got here. Let me tell you about Loretta Mae Watkins, born Loretta Mae Johnson in Birmingham, Alabama in 1949. Let me tell you about the woman they were making the mistake of underestimating. I met Vernon in 1970 at Bethel AME Church in Atlanta, where my family had moved for better opportunities. He was handsome, smooth-talking, wore a suit like he was born in one. He worked at the post office and had plans, he said. Plans to build something. I was 19, working at my aunt's beauty salon, and when Vernon Watkins smiled at me after Sunday service, I thought I'd found my future. We married in 1971. Our son Tyrell came in 1985, after years of trying and praying. Our daughter Denise followed in 1988. I thought we were blessed. I thought we'd built something solid. I worked 2 jobs for years, the salon during the day, cleaning offices at night, while Vernon moved up at the post office. We saved. We scrimped. We bought this house in 1995, a modest 3-bedroom in a decent Atlanta neighborhood where Black families were starting to build real equity. We paid it off in 15 years. When Mama died in 2018, she left me her house in Birmingham and $340,000 from selling her land. Land her parents, my grandparents, had owned since 1920. Blood money, in a way. Money earned by people who'd survived things I couldn't imagine. I'd invested it carefully, kept it separate from our joint accounts like my cousin Paulette advised. "Keep something that's yours, Loretta," she'd said. "Just in case." Just in case of what, I'd wondered then. Vernon and I were solid. We were forever. That Saturday morning, after I fed Isaiah his grits and eggs and sent him home with a pound cake for his mama, I sat in my kitchen and tried to think clearly. Vernon had gone to his lodge meeting, or so he said. These days, who knew where he really went? I pulled out my phone. My hands were still shaking. I needed to know if Isaiah had really heard what he thought he heard, or if this was some child's misunderstanding. I called my son first. "Hey, Ma," Tyrell answered on the third ring. He sounded cheerful. "What's going on?" "Just checking on my grandbaby," I said, keeping my voice light. "He left his jacket here." "Oh, that boy. I'll pick it up tomorrow when I bring him for Sunday dinner." "How's Keisha?" I asked, mentioning his wife. She's good. Working a double at the hospital." He paused. "Hey, Ma, how you feeling? You been taking your blood pressure medicine?" Something about the way he asked it made my skin crawl, like he was checking on an investment. "I'm fine. Son, baby, strong as an ox." "Well, you're 74 now. Gotta be careful at your age." I'd been 74 for 6 months. He'd never mentioned my age before. I said. "Well, I'll let you go." After I hung up, I sat there staring at my phone. Then I did something I'd never done before. I opened Vernon's laptop. He'd left it on the kitchen table, and I knew his password. It was our anniversary, 06151971. He'd made me memorize it years ago, in case something happens. It took me 20 minutes of searching through emails before I found them. Messages to someone named Cheryl Williams. They went back 2 years. My Vernon, my husband of 52 years. Talking about trips they'd take once things are settled. Talking about a condo in Florida he wanted to buy for them. Mentioning that she won't be around forever. The doctor said her heart is weak. My heart. He was talking about my heart. I'd had a small episode last year, minor really, but Dr. Patterson had put me on medication and told me to reduce stress. Apparently, my family was just waiting for me to die. I kept reading, my horror growing. There were emails between Vernon, Tyrell, and Denise, a thread titled Estate Planning. Tyrell had written, "Ma's got that inheritance locked up tight. Trust account, everything. You sure Cheryl knows what she's doing?" Vernon's response, "Cheryl's son is a lawyer. He'll make sure we have access to everything we need. Medical power of attorney, the works. Loretta trusts me. She'll sign whatever I put in front of her." Denise had replied, "Good, because I already told Jason we'd help with his business loan. We're counting on this." They were counting on me dying, and in the meantime, they were planning to get me to sign away my rights to my own money. I closed the laptop. My hands were steady now. The shaking had stopped, replaced by something cold and clear and hard. I'd spent 74 years being kind, being understanding, being the peacemaker, taking care of everyone else. And this was how my family saw me, as a wallet with an expiration date. I pulled out my phone again and scrolled through my contacts. There was a name there I hadn't called in 15 years, Paulette Freeman, my cousin who'd become an attorney. We'd had a falling out over something stupid, something I couldn't even remember now. Pride had kept us apart. Pride was a luxury I couldn't afford anymore. "Paulette Freeman," she answered on the second ring, professional and crisp. "Paulette, it's Loretta Watkins." There was a long pause. "Loretta, is everything all right?" "No," I said, and my voice finally cracked. "No, everything is not all right. I need help." "Tell me," she said, and just like that, 15 years of silence fell away. I told her everything. About Isaiah's warning, about the emails, about Vernon and Cheryl, and my children plotting like I was already in the ground. When I finished, Paulette was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "How fast can you get to my office?" "I can be there in an hour." "Make it 30 minutes. And Loretta, don't sign anything. Don't tell Vernon where you're going. Don't tell anyone anything." "I won't." "And cousin?" Her voice softened. "I'm sorry we lost so much time, but we're going to fix this. I promise you that." I drove to Paulette's office in Buckhead, my mind racing the whole way. I'd told Vernon I was going to the grocery store. He'd barely looked up from his television show. Paulette's office was impressive, all glass and modern furniture. She looked good, my cousin. Successful. Her hair was natural now, a beautiful silver afro that suited her. She hugged me tight, and I almost broke down right there. "Sit," she said, guiding me to her desk. "Let me see everything you've got." I showed her the emails on my phone. I'd taken pictures of every single one. Paulette's expression grew darker with each screenshot. "This is financial elder abuse," she said, "and conspiracy to commit fraud. Do you have your trust documents?" "At home, in my safe." "We need those. We also need to secure your assets immediately." "Do you have accounts that Vernon has access to?" "Our joint checking and savings, but my inheritance is in a separate trust. Mama's lawyer set it up that way. Smart woman, your mother. But Vernon's named on your medical power of attorney, isn't he?" My blood went cold. "Yes, we did that after his first stroke." "Then we revoke it. Today. If something happens to you, Vernon would have the right to make medical decisions. And if you're incapacitated, his lawyer friend could argue for conservatorship of all your assets." "Can they really do that?" "If they can prove you're not mentally competent, yes. Has Vernon been pushing you to see any particular doctors lately?" I thought back to the past few months. "He's been saying I should see a specialist about my memory, but Paulette, my memory is fine." "I'm sure it is." "But they could be building a case that you're experiencing cognitive decline." She leaned forward. "Loretta, they're not waiting for you to die naturally. They're setting up a scenario where they can take control of everything while you're still alive." The room seemed to tilt. This was worse than I'd thought. So much worse. "What do I do?" I whispered. "First, we protect you. Then, we protect your assets. And then," Paulette's eyes were fierce, "we make sure they pay for this. Are you ready for what's coming? Because when Vernon and your children find out you're fighting back, it's going to get ugly." I thought about 52 years of marriage. I thought about my children, the babies I'd nursed and raised and sacrificed for. I thought about Sunday dinners and birthday parties and all the times I'd put everyone else first. And then I thought about them laughing on the phone, planning how to carve up my life like I was already gone. "Let them come," I said. "I'm ready." Paulette smiled, and it reminded me of when we were girls causing trouble in Birmingham. That's what I wanted to hear. "Now, here's what we're going to do." Her phone buzzed. She glanced at it, and her expression changed. "What is it?" I asked. She turned the phone toward me. It was an alert from a legal news service. The headline made my heart stop. "Local attorney Richard Williams charged in elder fraud scheme." Richard Williams, Cheryl's son. The lawyer who was supposed to help Vernon steal my money. "Looks like someone beat us to the punch," Paulette murmured, reading quickly. "Federal charges, multiple victims, assets frozen pending investigation." I should have felt relieved. Instead, a new fear crept in. "If they can't use Richard anymore," I said slowly, "what will Vernon do?" Paulette's phone buzzed again. This time it was a text. Her face went pale. "What?" I demanded. "What is it?" "It's from my investigator friend at the courthouse. Your husband filed an emergency petition this morning." She looked up at me, her eyes dark with worry. "Loretta, he's trying to have you declared mentally incompetent. The hearing is Monday morning." 2 days. I had 2 days before Vernon tried to take everything. I couldn't breathe. Monday. That was the day after tomorrow. The day after our usual Sunday family dinner where I'd planned to serve pot roast and my famous peach cobbler, while my husband and children smiled in my face and plotted behind my back. "Can he really do that?" I asked Paulette. "Just file papers saying I'm not in my right mind?" "He can file, but he needs evidence. Medical records, witness statements, documented incidents of cognitive decline." Paulette was already typing on her computer. "The question is, What has he fabricated? My phone rang. Vernon's name flashed on the screen. Don't answer it, Paulette said. Not yet. We need to think strategically. But I was already pressing the green button. Something in me needed to hear his voice now that I knew the truth. Loretta, where are you? Vernon sounded annoyed. You've been gone 2 hours for groceries. 2 hours. Had it really been that long? I ran into an old friend, I said, keeping my voice steady. We got to talking. Well, you need to come home. We got to discuss something important. What's that? Not over the phone. Just come home. He hung up. I looked at Paulette. He wants me home. Says we need to talk. Absolutely not. Loretta, you cannot go back there alone. If he's filing for incompetency, he might try to create an incident, make you seem confused or unstable in front of witnesses. This is my home we're talking about, my life. I can't just disappear. You're not disappearing. You're protecting yourself. Paulette came around the desk, took both my hands. Stay with me tonight. Tomorrow we prepare. Monday we fight. But right now, you need to be somewhere safe. I don't have any clothes, my medications. We'll send someone to get them, someone Vernon doesn't know. She squeezed my hands. Loretta, I know this is scary. I know it feels like your whole world is turning upside down. But you have to trust me. I thought about Vernon waiting at home, Vernon who'd shared my bed for 52 years, Vernon who apparently couldn't wait for me to die or be declared incompetent so he could run off with Cheryl Williams and my inheritance. Okay, I whispered. Okay. Paulette made 3 phone calls. The first was to a private investigator named Dante Rodriguez. The second was to a colleague who specialized in elder law. The third was to her wife, Angela, letting her know they'd have a house guest. Now, Paulette said, pulling out a legal pad, tell me everything. Every doctor's appointment, every conversation about your health, every time Vernon suggested you were forgetting things. Every detail matters. We worked for 3 hours. By the time we finished, I had a timeline of the past year that made my stomach turn. Vernon had been setting this up for months, maybe longer. The specialist he'd wanted me to see? Dr. Harold Chen, who Paulette discovered had a history of questionable diagnoses in elder cases. The memory lapses Vernon kept mentioning to Tyrell and Denise? Complete fabrications. The time Vernon told everyone I'd left the stove on and nearly started a fire? I'd been at church that day. He'd been home alone. He's been building a narrative, Paulette said grimly. Creating a paper trail of your supposed incompetence. Do you have any witnesses who can testify to your mental clarity? I thought about my life, my routine. Pastor Gaines at First Baptist. I help with the church newsletter every week. I balance their books. Paulette's eyes lit up. You do their accounting? Have for 15 years. It's not complicated, but... Loretta? That's perfect. An incompetent person can't manage church finances. We need Pastor Gaines to testify. She wrote frantically. Who else? The ladies from my book club. We meet every Thursday, discuss everything from romance novels to political theory. Dorothy, Francine, Wanda, and Juanita. We've been meeting for 12 years. Better and better. These women will testify you're sharp? Dorothy's a retired professor. She'd never let me forget if I mixed up my facts. By the time we left Paulette's office, it was almost 8 o'clock. My phone had 17 missed calls from Vernon, 8 from Tyrell, and 5 from Denise. The family was circling. Paulette lived in a beautiful home in Cascade Heights with Angela, who taught history at Spelman College. Angela greeted me with a warm hug and a plate of food. She'd made curry chicken and rice, knowing I probably hadn't eaten. Your cousins told me so much about you over the years, Angela said, settling me at their kitchen table. I'm sorry it took these circumstances to finally meet. I ate while Paulette and Angela made plans. A courier would go to my house tomorrow while Vernon was at church. Yes, the man planning to rob me still went to church every Sunday, to get my clothes, medications, and most importantly, the documents from my safe. Won't he notice things missing? I asked. He'll notice you missing first, Paulette said, which is why we're going to send him a message. She handed me her phone. There was a draft email to Vernon. Vernon, I'm staying with a friend for a few days to clear my head. I'll be in touch. Don't worry about me. Loretta. It's vague enough not to tip him off, but clear enough he can't claim you wandered off confused, Paulette explained. I nodded and she sent it. Within 3 minutes, my phone rang. Vernon again. You should answer this one, Paulette said. But put it on speaker. Let us hear what he says. I answered. Hello? Loretta, what the hell is going on? What friend? Why do you need to clear your head? The anger in his voice was barely controlled. This wasn't concerned husband Vernon. This was a man whose plans were being disrupted. I just need some time, Vernon. I'll be back soon. This is ridiculous. You're not thinking clearly. Come home right now so we can talk about this. There it was. Not thinking clearly. I'm thinking just fine, I said, and my voice was stronger than I expected. I'll call you tomorrow. Loretta May, don't you dare hang up this. I ended the call. My hands were shaking again, but this time it wasn't fear. It was anger. 52 years, and he'd never spoken to me like that before. Or maybe he had, and I'd been too trained to keep the peace to notice. That night, I barely slept. I lay in Paulette's guest room, staring at the ceiling, thinking about everything I'd lost in one day. My marriage, my children, my sense of who I was in the world. But maybe, a small voice whispered, I'd also found something. My spine, my strength, my refusal to go quietly into whatever grave they'd been digging for me. Sunday morning, Paulette and Angela went to their church while I waited at the house. The courier, a brisk young woman named Tamika, had already been to my home and returned with 3 suitcases of my belongings and a locked metal box from my safe. Inside that box was everything. My mother's trust documents, the deed to her Birmingham house, my investment statements, my will, and a manila envelope I'd forgotten about. I opened the envelope and froze. It was from 2019, from a private investigator I'd hired when Vernon started coming home late smelling like perfume. I'd called it off after 2 weeks, feeling guilty for not trusting my husband. But here were the photographs, time-stamped and clear. Vernon and Cheryl Williams at a restaurant. Vernon and Cheryl going into a hotel. Vernon and Cheryl kissing in a parking lot. All dated October 2019. Almost 5 years ago. This wasn't some recent affair. This had been going on for half a decade, maybe longer. I was still staring at the photos when Paulette and Angela came home. Paulette took one look at my face and knew. What did you find? I showed her. She flipped through the photos, her jaw tightening. This is good, she said. Good? My husband's been cheating on me for 5 years and it's good? For the case, yes. It shows a pattern of deception and establishes his relationship with Cheryl Williams. It proves their connection isn't new or innocent. She looked at me carefully. Loretta, I know this hurts, but we can use this hurt. We can use it to protect you and everything you've worked for. That afternoon, Pastor Gaines came to Paulette's house. He was a tall man in his 60s. With kind eyes and a presence that had comforted me through my mother's funeral and countless other hard times. Sister Loretta, he said, taking my hands. I got your message. Tell me how I can help. I explained everything. His face grew darker with each revelation. Vernon Watkins, he said, shaking his head. Sitting in my church every Sunday, shaking hands, singing hymns, and plotting this evil against his own wife. He looked at me directly. I will testify. I will tell that judge exactly how sharp your mind is, how you catch errors in the church books that our accountant misses. I will make it clear that you are being targeted by people who should be protecting you. Thank you, Pastor. Don't thank me. This is what's right. This is what's just. He paused. Though I have to tell you, Vernon called me this morning. Said you were having some kind of breakdown. Asked me to call him if you reached out. My blood ran cold. What did you say? I said I'd pray on it. He smiled slightly. I didn't say I'd pray for the outcome he was hoping for. After Pastor Gaines left, my book club ladies arrived one by one. Dorothy, Francine, Wanda, and Juanita, all dressed in their Sunday best, all ready to fight for me. We never trusted that Vernon, Francine declared, settling her considerable frame into Paulette's sofa. Too smooth, too slick. And your children? Wanda shook her head. I hate to speak ill, Loretta, but those two have been treating you like a ATM for years. It was true. Tyrell was always asking for loans he never repaid. Denise always had some crisis that required money. I'd given and given, thinking that's what mothers did. We'll all testify, Dorothy said firmly. We'll tell that judge about our Thursday discussions. Last week you explained the entire plot of 100 Years of Solitude and connected it to current immigration policy. That's not a woman with cognitive decline. These women. These beautiful, fierce women who'd shown up for me without hesitation. We spent hours preparing, going over potential questions, documenting my activities and mental acuity. By the time they left, I felt fortified, loved, ready. That evening, Tyrell showed up at Paulette's door. I know she's here, he said when Angela answered. I tracked Ma's phone. Of course he did. I'd forgotten about the family tracking app we'd all installed years ago for safety. Paulette appeared beside Angela. She doesn't want to see you. That's my mother. You can't keep her from me. I'm not keeping her from anyone. She's making her own choices. Ma! Tyrell called past them into the house. Ma, please, we're worried about you. We just want to help. I appeared in the hallway, looked at my son, my first baby. The child I'd carried for 9 months and loved for 39 years. Help me how, Tyrell? I asked quietly. By having me declared incompetent? By stealing my inheritance? His face went pale. Ma, I don't know what you've been told, but I know about Richard Williams. I know about the plan. I know everything. Ma, listen. No, you listen. I stepped forward, and something in my voice made him step back. Monday morning, there's going to be a hearing. Your father is trying to take everything from me. Everything I worked for. Everything my mother left me. And you and your sister are helping him. It's not like that. Then what is it like? Explain it to me. He couldn't. He stood there, my 6-foot-tall son, and couldn't meet my eyes. I thought so, I said. You can tell your father and your sister that I'll see them in court. And Tyrell, don't bring Isaiah to my house anymore. I won't have my grandbaby used as a pawn in whatever game y'all playing. Ma, please. I closed the door in his face. My whole body was shaking. Paulette guided me to the couch while Angela brought me water. You did good, Paulette said. You stood up for yourself. But I didn't feel good. I felt like I'd just severed something vital, something that couldn't be repaired. That night, I finally broke down. All the tears I'd been holding back since Saturday morning came flooding out. Angela held me while I sobbed, mourning my marriage, my children, my old life where I'd been blind but comfortable. Let it out, she whispered. Let it all out. Tomorrow we fight. Monday morning arrived too fast and too slow. Paulette had me dressed in a navy suit, pearls, my mother's pearls, and sensible heels. I looked like what I was, a respectable woman who'd worked hard her whole life. We arrived at the courthouse at 8:30. The hearing was at 9. Vernon was already there with Denise and Tyrell, and a lawyer I didn't recognize. Not Richard Williams, obviously. Someone new. Vernon looked at me, and for a moment I saw something that might have been regret flash across his face. Then his lawyer whispered something to him, and his expression hardened. Denise wouldn't look at me at all. Tyrell stared at his shoes. All rise, the bailiff called, and we stood as Judge Patricia Morrison entered. She was a black woman in her 50s, with silver locks and intelligent eyes that missed nothing. "Be seated," she said. "Let's begin." Vernon's lawyer, a young white man who introduced himself as Bradley Cooper, yes, really, stood up. "Your Honor, we're here because Mr. Watkins is gravely concerned about his wife's deteriorating mental state. We have evidence of dangerous behavior, memory lapses, and confusion that puts Mrs. Watkins at risk. We're asking for an emergency conservatorship to protect her from herself and from those who might take advantage of her vulnerability." The audacity. The absolute audacity. Judge Morrison looked at me. "Mrs. Watkins, you have representation?" Paulette stood. "Paulette Freeman for Mrs. Watkins, Your Honor. And we're prepared to show that this petition is nothing but a scheme to defraud my client of her assets while conducting an extramarital affair." Vernon's lawyer jumped up. "Objection! That's inflammatory and—" "Save it for testimony, Mr. Cooper," Judge Morrison said dryly. "Ms. Freeman, you'll have your chance to present evidence. Mr. Cooper, call your first witness." Bradley Cooper called Dr. Chen to the stand. Dr. Chen was a small man with nervous hands. He testified that he'd conducted a phone consultation with Vernon about his wife's symptoms and believed, based on Vernon's description, that I was showing signs of dementia. "Let me get this straight," Judge Morrison interrupted. "You never examined Mrs. Watkins in person?" "No, Your Honor, but based on the husband's detailed account—" "You formed a medical opinion about a patient you never met based on what her husband told you?" Dr. Chen shifted uncomfortably. "It's not uncommon in cases where the patient refuses to seek help." "I never refused anything," I said, and Paulette put a hand on my arm. "Mrs. Watkins will have her turn," the judge said, but she was looking at Dr. Chen like he was something she'd scraped off her shoe. "Continue." The testimony went on. Dr. Chen described symptoms I supposedly had. Vernon's lawyer introduced evidence of my confusion, mostly Vernon's written statements and text messages between Vernon and the children. Then Paulette stood up for cross-examination. "Dr. Chen, are you aware that you're currently under investigation by the State Medical Board for providing questionable diagnoses in 3 other elder conservatorship cases?" The courtroom went silent. Dr. Chen's face went red. "Those complaints are pending review." "Pending review because the families involved claimed you helped fabricate evidence of incompetence so that financial predators could access their elderly relatives' assets?" "Objection!" Bradley Cooper was on his feet. "Overruled," Judge Morrison said, leaning forward. "I'd like to hear the answer to this myself." Those are baseless accusations," Dr. Chen stammered. "Baseless? All 3 families? What a coincidence." Paulette pulled out a document. "Your Honor, I'd like to submit Dr. Chen's disciplinary record. 4 complaints in 2 years, all following the same pattern." Judge Morrison accepted the document, read it, and her expression turned to stone. "Dr. Chen, you're excused, and I'll be forwarding this information to the State Medical Board myself." Dr. Chen practically ran from the courtroom. Bradley Cooper called Vernon to the stand next. My husband of 52 years sat in that witness box and lied. He talked about how I forgot appointments, left the stove on, couldn't remember our grandchildren's names. He painted a picture of a confused old woman losing her grip on reality. "I love my wife," Vernon said, and his voice actually broke. "I just want to protect her." If I hadn't seen those emails, those photos, I might have believed him. He was that good. Then Paulette stood up, and I saw Vernon's confidence falter. "Mr. Watkins, you love your wife?" "Yes." "Is that why you've been conducting an affair with Cheryl Williams for the past 5 years?" The courtroom erupted. Judge Morrison's gavel came down hard. "Order!" Vernon's face had gone gray. That's not... We're just friends." Paulette pulled out the photographs. "These are time-stamped photos from October 2019. Is this how friends behave where you come from?" The photos were passed to the judge. Vernon couldn't speak. "And this email," Paulette continued, pulling out printed copies, "where you tell Ms. Williams that once your wife is settled, you two can finally be together. What does settled mean, Mr. Watkins?" "I don't. Does it mean dead, or did you have a faster timeline in mind?" Paulette's voice was ice. "Like, say, declared incompetent and committed to a facility while you and your children drain her bank accounts? That's not... Your Honor, I'd like to submit these emails between Mr. Watkins and his children, discussing their mother's money like she's already deceased." Judge Morrison read the emails. Her face grew darker with each page. "Mr. Watkins," she said, "I suggest you invoke your Fifth Amendment right before you perjure yourself further in my courtroom." Vernon's lawyer was whispering frantically to him. "No further questions," Paulette said, and Vernon fled the stand. Then it was my turn. I walked to that witness box with my head high. I answered every question Paulette asked me. I recited the books I'd read, the church accounts I balanced, the newsletter articles I'd written. I was calm, clear, articulate. Bradley Cooper tried to shake me on cross-examination, but I didn't budge. Then Pastor Gaines testified. Then Dorothy, speaking in her professor's voice about our intellectual discussions. Then my doctor, who Paulette had subpoenaed, testifying that I was in excellent mental health. By noon, it was over. Judge Morrison looked at Vernon with unconcealed disgust. "Mr. Watkins, I'm denying this petition. Mrs. Watkins is clearly competent, and this appears to be exactly what her attorney suggested, a scheme to defraud her. I'm ordering you to have no contact with your wife's financial accounts, and I'm referring this matter to the district attorney's office for investigation of elder abuse." She turned to me. "Mrs. Watkins, I'm sorry you had to endure this. I suggest you consult with your attorney about protective orders and divorce proceedings." Divorce. The word hung in the air. Vernon stood up. "Your Honor, please. I love my wife. This is all a misunderstanding. Save it for your criminal attorney, Mr. Watkins. We're adjourned." The gavel came down. I'd won. But as I stood to leave, I saw Denise crying and Tyrell looking lost, and Vernon's face crumbling, and I realized winning felt an awful lot like losing everything that had ever mattered. Paulette was guiding me toward the exit when Bradley Cooper stepped in front of us. "Mrs. Watkins," he said urgently, "I need to warn you, this isn't over. Vernon and your children, they're desperate, and desperate people do dangerous things." "Is that a threat?" Paulette demanded. "It's a warning. From someone who just realized he was on the wrong side." He looked at me. "Watch your back, please." He walked away, leaving us standing there. "What does he mean?" I asked Paulette. She was already pulling out her phone. "I don't know, but we're not taking chances. I'm calling Dante. You're getting protection." We pushed through the courthouse doors into the bright Atlanta sunshine. And that's when I saw her. A woman standing by a black Mercedes, staring at me with pure hatred. Cheryl Williams. She was beautiful, I noticed with a strange detachment. Younger than me by at least 15 years, with straightened hair and expensive clothes. She started walking toward me. "Get in the car," Paulette said urgently, but I stood my ground. Cheryl stopped 3 feet away. "You stupid old woman," she said, her voice venomous. "You just ruined everything. Everything we planned." "You mean everything you tried to steal?" I said calmly. "Vernon loves me. He's loved me for years. You were just in the way. Then he should have divorced me honestly instead of trying to steal from me. That money should be ours. Vernon earned it putting up with you all these years." Something snapped inside me. My mother's money? That my grandparents earned surviving Jim Crow? That I inherited through blood and suffering? Vernon earned that? I stepped closer to her. "You don't know anything about earning, you vulture. You were just circling, waiting for me to die." "You're going to regret this," Cheryl hissed. "You're going to regret—" "Is that a threat?" Dante Rodriguez appeared beside us, his phone out, recording. "Please, keep talking." Cheryl looked at the phone. At me, at Paulette. Then she turned and stalked back to her Mercedes. We watched her drive away. "This isn't finished," Dante said grimly. "That was personal. She's going to retaliate." "Let her try," I said, but my bravado was fading. I was 74 years old. I'd just destroyed my marriage and my relationship with my children. I'd won the battle, but the war felt far from over. That night back at Paulette's house, I lay awake thinking about everything I'd lost in 3 days. My husband, my children, my grandchildren, my sense of safety in the world. But I'd kept my dignity, my assets, my freedom. Was it enough? I must have finally fallen asleep, because when my phone rang at 2:47 a.m., it jerked me from a nightmare. Unknown number. I answered without thinking. "Hello? Grandma Lo?" It was Isaiah, crying. "Grandma Lo, please help. Something's wrong with Mama." My blood turned to ice. "Isaiah, what's happening? Where's your daddy?" "He left. He and Mama were fighting and he left. And now Mama's on the floor and she won't wake up and I'm scared." "Baby, I'm calling 911 right now. Stay on the phone with me. Can you unlock the front door?" "Yes." "Do that, baby. Help is coming." I was already up, throwing on clothes, yelling for Paulette. "Loretta, you can't go there," Paulette said. "It could be a trap." "That's my grandson and my daughter-in-law. I'm going." We raced through empty Atlanta streets, Paulette calling 911, calling Dante, calling everyone she could think of. We beat the ambulance to Tyrell's house by 2 minutes. Isaiah met me at the door, sobbing. I grabbed him, held him tight. "Where's your mama?" He pointed to the living room. Keisha was on the floor, breathing but unconscious, empty pill bottles beside her. Oh, God! The paramedics rushed in, pushing me aside. They worked on Keisha, asking questions I couldn't answer. "She's overdosed," one of them said. "Looks like benzos and alcohol. We need to get her to Grady now." They loaded her onto a stretcher. "I'm riding with her," I said. "Family only," the paramedics started to say. "I am family." At the hospital, they took Keisha straight back. I sat in the waiting room with Isaiah sleeping against my shoulder and Paulette making phone calls. Tyrell burst through the doors at 4:15 a.m., wild-eyed. "Where is she? Where's my wife?" "They're working on her," I said coldly. "Where were you?" Ma, I'm sorry. We were fighting about everything that happened in court, and I left. I didn't know she'd try to kill herself? After you dragged her into your scheme to rob your own mother?" Tyrell collapsed into a chair, his head in his hands. A doctor emerged an hour later. Keisha was stable. She'd be okay. But this was clearly a suicide attempt, and they'd need to keep her for psychiatric evaluation. "She left a note," the doctor said carefully, handing Tyrell a plastic bag. Inside was a piece of paper. Tyrell read it, and his face crumpled. "What does it say?" I asked. He handed it to me with shaking hands. "I can't live with what we've done to you," I read aloud. "I can't live knowing we tried to destroy the woman who's been nothing but good to us. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Please take care of Isaiah. Tell him his mama was weak. But she loved him." The words blurred as my eyes filled with tears. Keisha. Sweet Keisha, who'd married my son fresh out of nursing school, who'd given me 2 beautiful grandbabies, who'd been caught up in her husband's greed and couldn't live with the guilt. "I'm sorry, Ma," Tyrell sobbed. "I'm so sorry. I was angry that you kept all that money to yourself. I thought you should share it. Help us out. Denise's husband's business is failing and my job cut our benefits and I thought you were being selfish. So, you decided to have me declared incompetent and steal it? Dad said you'd never miss it. He said you were getting old anyway and we should secure our futures. And I listened. God help me. I listened to him instead of remembering who you are, what you've done for us. He looked up at me, and he was 10 years old again. My baby boy. Can you ever forgive me? I looked at my son, at my grandson sleeping against me, at the door behind which my daughter-in-law was being kept alive after trying to escape her guilt. I don't know, I said honestly. I don't know if I can. I left Tyrell there and took Isaiah home with me, not to my real home, but to Paulette's house, the safest place I knew. But as we drove through the pre-dawn Atlanta streets, I couldn't shake the feeling that something worse was coming. Bradley Cooper had warned me. Dante had warned me. Even Vernon's lawyer knew this wasn't over. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. I opened it and my blood ran cold. It was a photo of Vernon's house. My house. Burning. Flames were shooting from the windows, consuming everything I'd built in 52 years. And below the photo, a single line of text. You took everything from us. Now we take everything from you. This is just the beginning. I stared at the photo of my burning house, my hands shaking so hard I almost dropped the phone. 52 years of memories. Photo albums from when my babies were small, my mother's china, my grandmother's quilt, my father's Bible, all of it burning. Paulette, I whispered, showing her the phone. She swerved to the side of the road, grabbed the phone, and immediately called 911 and then Dante. Don't respond to that text, she ordered. Don't engage at all. Isaiah stirred against me. Mama Lo? What's wrong? Nothing, baby. Go back to sleep. But everything was wrong. Everything was burning. We turned around, racing toward my neighborhood. Fire trucks were already there when we arrived, their lights painting the pre-dawn sky red. Neighbors stood in their yards and on the sidewalk, watching my life go up in smoke. I got out of the car like I was moving through water. Everything felt slow and unreal. Ma'am, you can't go closer, a firefighter said, stopping me. That's my house. I'm sorry, it's not safe. The structure's compromised. I watched the flames consume the bedroom where I'd slept for 29 years, the kitchen where I'd cooked 10,000 meals, the living room where my babies had taken their first steps. Vernon was there, I realized, standing across the street in his pajamas, watching. Our eyes met across the distance and smoke. He looked afraid. Good. Dante arrived within 15 minutes, already on his phone. Arson investigators are on the way. Don't talk to anyone except them and the police. And Loretta? He showed me his phone. I've been monitoring Vernon's and Cheryl's phones since yesterday. Vernon got a call from Cheryl at 2:23 a.m. 14 minutes later, your house alarm was disabled. 16 minutes after that, someone called 911 to report the fire. Can you prove it was them? I can prove the call came from Cheryl's phone to Vernon's. The rest, the arson investigators will figure out. The fire chief came over an hour later. The fire was out, but the house was a total loss. Ma'am, I'm sorry, but I need to ask, do you have any enemies? Anyone who'd want to hurt you? I almost laughed. Yes. My husband and his mistress. Possibly my children. His eyebrows went up. That's specific. She got a threatening text message with a photo of the fire before we even knew about it, Paulette said, showing him my phone. And her security system was remotely disabled right before the fire started. I'll need to see that. And we'll need a formal statement. I gave them everything. The investigators' photos of Vernon and Cheryl, the threatening text, the timeline Dante had put together, the court case from yesterday, all of it. By the time the sun was fully up, Vernon had been taken in for questioning. So had Cheryl. My neighbors came over one by one. Mrs. Patterson from next door brought me coffee. Mr. and Mrs. Holloway offered me their guest room. Young Jasmine from down the street, who I'd tutored through high school, was crying. Miss Loretta, I'm so sorry. If you need anything at all. These people, my community. They were showing up in ways my own family hadn't. Denise arrived at 9 a.m., screeching to a halt in her BMW. "Ma! Oh my God, Ma!" She ran toward me, but something in my face stopped her cold. "Don't," I said quietly. "Ma, your house." "Where were you last night, Denise?" "I was home. She stopped. "You can't think I had anything to do with this." "Can't I? You were part of the plan to rob me. Why not this too?" "Because I'm not a criminal." Her voice rose. "Yes, I went along with Dad's plan. Yes, I wanted the money, but I would never—" She looked at the smoking ruins of the house she'd grown up in. "I would never do this." "But you'd let them declare me incompetent and take everything I own?" "That's different. How? How is it different?" She couldn't answer. "Your sister-in-law tried to kill herself last night," I said. "Did you know that? Keisha couldn't live with the guilt of what you all tried to do to me. She left your nephew motherless because the shame was too much." Denise's face went white. "Is she?" "She'll live, but that's more than you deserve to know." I turned away from her. "Go home, Denise. I don't have a daughter anymore. Ma, please. Go. Home." She left crying, and I felt nothing. I was all cried out. The police came back at noon with news. Vernon had cracked during questioning. Cheryl had called him in a rage after seeing me at the courthouse. She'd been the one to suggest sending a message, but Vernon swore he'd talked her out of it. He claimed he'd gone to bed after their call and had no idea she'd actually gone through with it. But his phone's GPS showed he'd left his lodge at 2:35 a.m., right around the time my security system was disabled. And a traffic camera caught his car 2 blocks from my house at 2:41 a.m. Vernon had set my house on fire. Or helped Cheryl do it. Either way, he'd destroyed everything we'd built together to punish me for not letting him destroy me first. They arrested him that afternoon. Arson. Attempted insurance fraud. The elder abuse charges were being upgraded to include the fire. I watched them put him in the police car, his hands cuffed behind his back. 52 years of marriage, ending with him being driven away in the back of a squad car. "How do you feel?" Paulette asked softly. "Empty," I said. "Just empty." But that wasn't quite true. Under the emptiness was something else. Something that felt almost like relief. The next few days were a blur. Insurance investigators, police interviews, calls from the district attorney's office. Cheryl was arrested too. They found her fingerprints on a gas can in her garage, and security footage from a gas station showed her filling it at 1:47 a.m. The evidence was overwhelming. They'd planned it together, my husband and his mistress. Burned down our home to punish me for standing up for myself. Tyrell came to see me on Wednesday. Isaiah was with him, and I let them in only because I couldn't turn my grandson away. "Ma, I need to tell you something," Tyrell said. We were sitting in Paulette's living room, Isaiah between us on the couch. "I've filed for divorce." I blinked. "From Keisha?" "No, I mean, I'm not. We're going to counseling. But I meant I'm divorcing myself from Dad's mess. I went to the police. I told them everything I knew about his plans with Cheryl, everything about Richard Williams and the conservatorship scheme. All of it." "Why?" "Because Keisha's in the hospital because of me. Because my son asked his grandma for help instead of his daddy, because he knew I couldn't be trusted. Because I looked at what was left of your house and realized I'd become a man I don't recognize." His eyes were red. "I can't give you back what we tried to take, but I can make sure Dad goes to prison for what he did." It wasn't enough. It couldn't undo the betrayal. But it was something. "What about Denise?" I asked. Tyrell shook his head. "She's still defending Dad. Says you pushed him to it by being greedy with your inheritance." Of course she did. Denise had always been Vernon's favorite, his little princess who could do no wrong. Mama Lo? Isaiah climbed into my lap. Something he hadn't done in months. He was getting too big for it, but I held him anyway. Are you gonna be okay? Yes, baby, I am. Even without a house? A house is just wood and bricks, baby. What matters is the people who love you. He hugged me tight. I love you, Mama Lo. And just like that, I wasn't empty anymore. The trial started 6 weeks later. Vernon and Cheryl were being tried together. Arson, conspiracy, attempted fraud, and multiple counts of elder abuse. I sat in the courtroom every single day, dressed in my mother's pearls and my dignity. Paulette sat beside me, Angela on my other side. Behind me, Pastor Gaines and the book club ladies and neighbors and church members who'd known me for decades. The prosecutor, a sharp black woman named Ava Thornton, built the case piece by piece. The emails planning to steal my money, the fake medical evidence, the affair, the phone calls the night of the fire, the GPS data, the gas can, the threatening text message. Vernon's lawyer tried to paint him as a desperate man driven to extremes by a vindictive wife. It didn't work. Cheryl's lawyer tried to blame everything on Vernon, claiming she'd been manipulated by promises of a future together. That didn't work either. The jury deliberated for 3 hours. Guilty on all counts. Vernon got 12 years. Cheryl got 10. I watched the bailiffs take them away, Vernon looking back at me one last time with something that might have been regret or might have been hatred. I couldn't tell any more, and I realized I didn't care. Outside the courthouse, reporters wanted statements. I let Ava Thornton handle most of it, but I did say one thing. To any elder person being taken advantage of by family, you are not alone, you are not powerless, and you deserve better. Fight for yourself, because you matter. The clip went viral. By that evening, I had 3,000 friend requests on Facebook, and my phone wouldn't stop ringing. One of those calls was from a producer at a local news station. They wanted to do a story about elder abuse. Would I be willing to be interviewed? I said yes. The interview aired the following week. I told my story, all of it. The betrayal, the court case, the fire. I showed them photos of my burned house, my mother's trust documents, the threatening text messages. The response was overwhelming. Hundreds of people reached out with their own stories of being financially abused by family members. Lawyers called offering pro bono help. A state representative contacted me about testifying before the legislature about stronger elder abuse protections. Me, Loretta Mae Watkins, 74 years old, becoming an advocate. Meanwhile, life was moving forward in other ways. The insurance company paid out my claim. Arson didn't void my coverage since I wasn't the one who set the fire. I had enough to rebuild if I wanted to. But I didn't want to. That house had been Vernon's choice, Vernon's neighborhood. I'd lived there for 29 years, but it had never really been mine. Instead, I bought a beautiful condo in Cascade Heights, 2 floors below Paulette and Angela. 2 bedrooms, modern kitchen, a balcony overlooking a park. It was smaller than the house, but it was mine, completely mine. I furnished it exactly how I wanted. Bright colors instead of Vernon's demanded neutrals. Art from black artists on the walls. A reading nook by the window. A fancy espresso machine because I'd always wanted one and Vernon said it was a waste of money. My book club ladies came over for the first meeting in my new place. We drank wine and talked about Octavia Butler and laughed until we cried. This was what freedom felt like. Keisha got out of the hospital after 3 weeks of intensive treatment. She and Tyrell were in counseling, marriage counseling and family counseling. She came to see me one Saturday, nervous and apologetic. "Miss Loretta, I don't expect you to forgive me," she said. "I just need you to know how sorry I am. I should have stood up to Tyrell. I should have protected you instead of going along with that scheme." "You tried to kill yourself rather than face what you'd done," I said. "That's punishment enough." "I was weak. You were human, and you're getting help now. That takes strength. I poured her tea. We were sitting in my new kitchen with the morning sun streaming in. Are you and Tyrell going to make it? I don't know. I love him, but I don't trust him anymore, and Isaiah needs stability. She looked at me. Would you be willing to see Isaiah sometimes? He misses you so much. I never stopped wanting to see my grandbabies. They didn't betray me. So Isaiah started coming over on Saturdays again. Just him and me, making pancakes and watching cartoons and doing homework. Sometimes Tyrell would pick him up and we'd exchange pleasantries. But we weren't close anymore. Maybe we never would be again. That was the cost of what he'd done. Denise, I didn't see at all. She'd sent a few emails that I'd deleted without reading. She'd shown up at my condo once, but I'd had the doorman turn her away. She'd made her choice to stand by Vernon. She could live with it. 3 months after the trial, I got a call from an estate lawyer in Birmingham. Mrs. Watkins, I'm handling the sale of your mother's property. We've had an offer from a developer. $2 million. I almost dropped the phone. $2 million? Your mother's land is in an area that's being rezoned for commercial development. The buyer wants to build a shopping complex. It's a very generous offer. $2 million, on top of my mother's original inheritance and the insurance payout. I called Paulette immediately. Take it, she said. But let me review the contracts first. Make sure everything's legitimate. It was. I signed the papers 2 weeks later, and then I sat in my condo, looking at my bank balance, and realized I was a wealthy woman. Not rich, but comfortable. More than comfortable. My mother's legacy. My grandparents' legacy. Everything they'd survived and worked for, now in my hands. I thought about what to do with it. Vernon and my children had seen it as something to take, something they were owed. But I saw it as something to build with. I established a trust fund for Isaiah and for Tyrell's youngest daughter, Naomi, who I'd gotten to see a few times. Money they couldn't access until they turned 25, managed by Paulette. Their education and futures secured. I donated $100,000 to First Baptist Church to establish an elder care fund, money to help senior members who were struggling or being exploited by family. I set up a scholarship fund at Spelman College in my mother's name for students studying social work or law. And I kept enough to live on comfortably, to travel, to enjoy my life for however many years I had left. Because that's what this money was for. Not to sit in a bank account waiting for vultures, not to be fought over, but to do some good in the world. The state representative, Maria Gonzalez, invited me to testify before the legislature in April. I stood in front of a room full of politicians and told my story. I talked about how easy it was for predators to abuse the elderly, how the system failed to protect vulnerable people, how I'd only survived because I had resources and a lawyer in the family. But what about the people who don't have what I had? I asked. What about the elderly people with no one to call, no money for lawyers, no family willing to stand up for them? They deserve protection too. The room was silent when I finished. 2 months later, the Elder Protection Act passed with bipartisan support. Stronger penalties for financial abuse, better oversight of conservatorships, mandatory reporting by medical professionals. They named it Loretta's Law. I cried when Representative Gonzalez told me. Happy tears this time. My phone rang constantly now. Organizations wanting me to speak, churches asking me to share my testimony, support groups for elder abuse survivors inviting me to meetings. I said yes to most of them. At 74, I'd found my purpose. One Saturday in June, I was making pancakes for Isaiah when my doorbell rang. It was Tyrell, but he looked different, lighter somehow. Ma, can we talk? Not about, I don't want anything from you. I just need to tell you something. I let him in. Isaiah ran to hug his father, and I saw Tyrell hold him like he was precious. I've been in therapy, Tyrell said when we sat down. Working on myself, understanding why I did what I did. And why did you do it? Because Dad raised me to see you as weak. as someone to take care of, not someone to respect. Because I was angry that you kept your inheritance separate instead of immediately sharing it. Because I felt entitled to money I didn't earn. He looked at me directly. None of that is an excuse, but it's the truth. What do you want from me, Tyrell? Nothing. I want to give you something. He pulled out an envelope. This is every penny you ever gave me that I claimed was a loan. I've been tracking it for months, going through bank statements. It's $47,000. I'm paying it back. I opened the envelope. There was a check inside for $47,000. Tyrell, I can't undo what I did, but I can stop being the man who did it. I can be better for my son, for my wife, for myself. His eyes were wet. And maybe someday, if I prove I've changed, you might trust me again. I looked at my son, really looked at him, and I saw regret there. Real regret, not just regret that he'd been caught. It's going to take time, I said. I know. And I'll never forget what happened. I wouldn't want you to. I need to remember too. To make sure I never become that person again. It wasn't forgiveness. Not yet. But it was a start. After Tyrell left, I sat with the check in my hand and thought about grace. About second chances. About the long, hard work of healing. Some people didn't deserve second chances. Vernon, burning down our house to punish me. Denise, still making excuses for it. But Tyrell? Maybe. Maybe he was doing the work to earn one. Time would tell. That evening, Paulette and Angela took me to a new restaurant in the West End. A beautiful place with Southern fusion food and live jazz. We ate blackened catfish and collard greens with a twist, and drank sweet tea spiked with bourbon. To you, Paulette toasted, raising her glass. My cousin, my hero, the strongest woman I know. To surviving, I added. And to choosing yourself when everyone else wants you to choose them. We clinked glasses, and I looked around at the restaurant full of black folks enjoying good food and good music, living their lives with joy and style. I'd survived. More than that, I'd won. Not just the court case or the money. I'd won my freedom, my peace, my sense of self. At 74 years old, I'd lost everything and gained everything at the same time. What are you thinking about? Angela asked. About how my story could have ended very differently, I said. If Isaiah hadn't warned me. If Paulette hadn't helped me. If I'd been too scared or too proud to fight back. But you did fight back, Paulette said. That's what matters. I want other people to fight back too. I want every elder person being abused to know they can win. Then keep telling your story, Angela said. Keep showing up. Keep being you. The jazz singer started a new song, something old and soulful about freedom. And I thought about my mother, who'd left me an inheritance that became a weapon against me and then a tool for my liberation. I thought about my grandparents, who'd survived Jim Crow and held on to their land through everything. I thought about all the black women who'd come before me, who'd been strong when strength was the only option. I was their legacy, and I was going to honor it. A year after the trial, I stood in front of a community center auditorium filled with 200 people. Elder abuse survivors, their families, social workers, lawyers, people who wanted to help or needed help themselves. My name is Loretta Mae Watkins, I said into the microphone, and I'm here to tell you that you are not powerless. I told them my story, all of it, the betrayal, the fight, the fire, the victory. They thought I was weak because I was old, I said. They thought I was easy to manipulate because I'd spent my life being kind. They thought being a devoted wife and mother meant I'd let them destroy me. I paused, looking out at all those faces. They were wrong. The applause was thunderous. After my speech, people lined up to talk to me, to share their stories, to ask for advice, to thank me for giving them hope. An elderly man with tears in his eyes told me his daughter had stolen his life savings. "I didn't think anyone would believe me," he said. "But hearing your story, I'm going to fight back." "You should," I told him. "You deserve justice." A middle-aged woman told me she'd been watching her mother get taken advantage of by a new husband. I didn't know how to help her, but now I do. Thank you. One by one, they came. And I listened to each story, gave what advice I could, connected them with resources. This was my life now, my purpose. That night, back in my condo, I made myself a cup of tea and sat on my balcony watching the lights of Atlanta sparkle in the distance. My phone buzzed. A text from Tyrell. "Saw your speech online. I'm proud of you, Ma. And I'm sorry again. Every day, I'm sorry." I typed back. "I know. Keep working on yourself. That's what matters now." Another text. This one from Keisha. "Isaiah wants to know if he can come over tomorrow. He misses his Mama Lo." I smiled. "Anytime. He's always welcome." No text from Denise. There probably never would be. That was okay. I'd learned that sometimes loving someone meant accepting they weren't good for you. That sometimes family were the people who showed up, not the people who shared your blood. My real family was Paulette and Angela, Pastor Gaines and the church community, my book club ladies, the neighbors who'd brought me coffee while my house burned, the survivors who reached out to me now, creating a network of strength and support. That was family. I thought about Vernon sometimes, locked up in a prison cell. I wondered if he had regrets beyond getting caught, if he thought about 52 years of marriage and wondered where it all went wrong. Probably he blamed me. Narcissists usually did, but his blame couldn't touch me anymore. I was free of him. Free of his expectations and his betrayals and his attempts to control my life even in its final chapters. I was just Loretta now, not Vernon's wife, not Tyrell and Denise's mother, just Loretta. And Loretta was doing just fine. The Atlanta skyline glittered before me, full of possibility. I was 75 years old, and my life was just beginning. I'd lost a husband, a daughter, most of my possessions, and my sense of safety. But I'd gained myself, my voice, my power, my peace. And that, I realized, was worth everything. My phone rang one more time. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. "Loretta Watkins?" A woman's voice, unfamiliar. "Yes?" "My name is Diane Morrison. I'm a producer for a documentary series about elder abuse. We'd like to feature your story. Would you be interested?" I thought about all the people out there suffering in silence, all the elderly folks being robbed and manipulated and told they were crazy or difficult or ungrateful, all the people who needed to know they could fight back. "Yes," I said. "I'm interested." Because my story wasn't over. It was just getting started. And this time, I was writing it myself. 3 months later, the documentary premiered. Betrayed, the Loretta Watkins story, aired nationally, showing my journey from betrayal to justice. The response was overwhelming. Hotlines were flooded with calls from elder abuse victims. Laws were proposed in 6 states based on Georgia's Elder Protection Act. I was invited to speak at conferences, on news shows, at universities. Vernon's parole hearing came and went. Denied. He'd serve his full sentence. Cheryl was denied too. They'd have to face the consequences of what they'd done. One afternoon, I was in my kitchen baking a pound cake, teaching Isaiah my mother's recipe, when my doorbell rang. It was Denise. She looked terrible, thin, tired, older than her 36 years. "Ma," she said, "please, I need to talk to you." I almost closed the door, but Isaiah was watching, and I wanted him to see grace, even when it was hard. 5 minutes, I said. We sat in my living room. Isaiah went back to the kitchen, giving us space but close enough to hear. "Jason left me," Denise said. "His business failed and he left. Took what money we had left and moved to Texas with his secretary." I waited. And I realized I threw away my relationship with my mother for a man who didn't even love me. For money that was never mine to begin with. She was crying now. I defended Dad because I couldn't face what we'd done. What I'd done. And now I've lost everything. "What do you want from me, Denise?" "I want to say I'm sorry. I want you to know that I know how wrong I was. And I want—" She looked up at me with her father's eyes. "I want my mama back." I sat there looking at my daughter, thinking about all the ways she'd failed me, all the ways she'd chosen her father over me, money over love, greed over gratitude. "I can't be the mother I was before," I said finally. "That woman doesn't exist anymore. She died in a fire your father set." Denise flinched. "But I can be the woman I am now, and that woman has boundaries. That woman doesn't accept empty apologies. That woman requires action, not just words." "What do you need me to do?" "Therapy. Real therapy, not just a few sessions. Work on understanding why you made the choices you made. And when you've done that work, really done it, we can talk about rebuilding." "That's fair," Denise whispered. "And Denise, I forgive you, but I'll never forget, and you'll have to live with that." She nodded, tears streaming down her face. It wasn't a happy reunion. It wasn't a hallmark moment. But it was honest. And maybe, eventually, it would be enough. After she left, Isaiah came out of the kitchen. "Are you sad, Mama Lo?" "No, baby. I'm hopeful. Hope and sad can live together sometimes." He thought about that. "Like when Mama was in the hospital. I was sad she was hurt, but hopeful she'd get better." Exactly like that. We finished the pound cake together, and I taught him the secret, a little almond extract, just like my mother had taught me. Generations of women passing down recipes and resilience. That night, I wrote in the journal my therapist had suggested I keep. Today, I chose grace, not because they deserved it, but because I deserve peace. Holding on to anger was holding on to them. Letting go is letting myself be free. I'm 75 years old. I've been betrayed by the people I loved most. I've lost my home and my marriage and my sense of safety. But I've gained so much more. I've gained my voice, my strength, my purpose. I've gained the knowledge that I can survive anything. I've gained a community of people who see me for who I really am. And I've gained the rest of my life to live exactly as I choose. That's not a tragedy. That's a triumph. This is Loretta Mae Watkins. Signing off. Not as a victim, but as a survivor, a fighter, a woman who chose herself. And I'd do it again in a heartbeat. I closed the journal and looked around my condo, my space, my sanctuary, my new beginning. Outside, Atlanta hummed with life. Inside, I was finally at peace. The girl from Birmingham who'd married young and devoted herself to family had become the woman who'd stood up for herself and changed lives in the process. I'd found my strength in my darkest hour, and I was never letting it go. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to subscribe and feel free to share your story in the comments. Your voice matters.